Moving on, Andrew Porter is a writer who grew up in Pennsylvania and spent most of his 20s in various parts of the country before, again, finally settling down in San Antonio as well. He's been here since 2004, the author of 2 books, The Theory of Light and Matter, short stories. We got a book posse going there. That is awesome, Light and Matter theory. And in between, we're going to have a contest to see who screams the loudest for odd things. And in between days, that is a novel.
Yes.
And currently, he teaches fiction writing and directs the creative writing program at Trinity University. Please give it up for the author of The Theory of Light and Matter, dude, Andrew Porter.
That was the best introduction ever. Hello, San Antonio. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about the process of writing my second book, which is a novel. My first book is a collection of short stories. For this collection were bought by Random House. An editor at Canuck asked me if I also had a novel, and as you can see from my expression, I didn't. But I did have a vague idea for a novel, and so over the course of that weekend, I wrote a 2-page synopsis of a novel that I could kind of imagine myself writing one day, and it was very open-ended. It must have sounded somewhat interesting, I guess, because a couple weeks later, in the mail, I got a contract from the contract specified that I had 2 years to write this novel. It had to be 80,000 words and a bunch of other stuff. And so I was thrilled for about a minute, and then I realized I actually had to write this thing. So this is a picture of me in my workspace. I work out of my back deck in the mornings almost every day. That's my dog Winnie, who's there for moral support and inspiration. And I've always worked outside. Here's actually a closer look at my work. I always have lots of books there. I love to read for about half an hour before I start writing to kind of get in the mood to write. Got coffee, backup coffee, of course, notebook and pen. I've always written longhand, and here's actually a picture of a page from the novel as it appeared originally in my notebook. And as you can see, I edit a lot along the way. My handwriting is absolutely horrendous. And I don't know why anyone would want to do this, but if someone should actually want to read my entire novel longhand, they would have to read all of these notebooks. That's the first draft of the novel right there. And after I wrote it out longhand, I typed it into my computer and began the next part of the process, which was kind of editing. And this is a page also from the novel. This is a sort of typical page of mine when I'm editing. As you can see, lots of things crossed out, marginal notes, arrows. I don't think anyone but me could decipher actually what any of this means, but that's an original edited page. Those are all the drafts I saved, all the important drafts. Probably I printed out about 10 times that many pieces of paper, so sadly, probably part of a tree had to die for me to write it. But anyway, two years later, I actually finished it, and this is finished manuscript. It came out to be about 500 pages, or a little over 500 pages, double-spaced. And I sent that off to my editor, and after a little back and forth, she sent it off to the copy editor, and that's the next stage of the process. And all of this is done now in track changes in this order. And so this is the copy editor's marks. All of her edits are in blue, and all of my responses to those edits are in green. So a lot of back and forth that goes on. I also didn't have a title for the novel when I turned it in. I turned it in untitled, so these are some of the title possibilities. As you can see, there are a lot of them. we ended up deciding on the title in between days, and once we decided on that title, they had to go about finding someone to design a cover for it, and I was very fortunate. A very famous designer who designed the Life of Pi and a bunch of other books designed this cover, and I really loved it, but it didn't fit the tone of the book, so I very nervously asked them if they could actually come up with another version, and to my surprise they agreed, and so this is the second version of the cover, which actually fits the tone of the book a lot better, I felt. That's actually a swimming pool in Austin, and then the novel takes place in Houston. Anyway, after this was decided upon, the novel gets sent out in what's called galley-proof form, and this is what this is. And basically this is like a paperback version of the novel without the cover, and that gets sent out to magazines, newspapers, bloggers, radio stations, anyone who might want to cover the book, and that goes out like 6 months in advance so they can read it. We also begin planning the book tour. Those are all the places I'm going to be reading in the next year. A lot of places in Texas, East Coast, West Coast, not so much in the middle of the country. I don't know why, but I'm going to Iowa City. This is the cover. They also designed the jacket. My editor actually does all this. She wrote the bio, collected all the blurbs. She wrote the book description on the right-hand side. And so that's all done sort of well in advance. And there's a lot of sort of back and forth about that content as well. Another thing is I'm working also with foreign publishers at this time. This is the Australian cover of the novel. And there's going to be a French version and a Dutch version and a British version. But I go through the same process to a lesser extent with all of those publishers as well. And then finally it gets loaded up to Amazon. This is not suggestive. But they begin building that page, and then, 3 years later, after all of this is done, one day in the mail I get the book. That's my daughter taking it to the checkout counter. Thank you very much.
I think we have a new candidate for Best Picnic when you get your contract to Amazon. I noticed up there it's September 4th, is that right? When it's available? Okay, and you talked great about the process, but people might wonder, okay, there was a book jacket that could have been a beer, and then there was a young chick at a pool. What is it about?
It's actually about a family living in Houston that's kind of going through a crisis. I'll leave it vague, but that's what it's about. Beer, they drink beer in the novel, but certainly like Corona beer is not what the novel's about. What that first ever seemed to suggest. That or like spring break in Canada.
And I know there are a lot of creative people here who are fascinated by the process, but also getting into the business. How did you start? How long did it take? I mean, you got a contract there after your book of short stories that came out when?
2008. 2008, but the paperback rights were bought in 2009, so it's 3 years total.
And if somebody's out there who's writing a book, can they ask you how to get in contact with NOF publishers or anything like that?
They're free to ask me.
And how often do you write a day? You got 80,000 words. How much do you write? What's the rest of your day? What's a writer do in San Antonio?
For the rest of my day, I'm changing diapers for the rest of my day.